an obsession for perfection in life in general, in all things and all variables.
That hunger to get it done and to get it done better day in and day out is so essential to being a great machinist.
I would always try something new. So every time I handed a part to somebody, like, well, is this good? Is this, whatever? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know.
If you're not solving a legitimate problem, then why do people care? So we're talking about how to become a great machinist.
A great machinist.
Oh, man.
Great.
Jesse's been trying to figure that out for years.
Yeah. Y'all let me know.
Pen and paper available.
So good, so good. I think attitude is everything.
100%.
Attitude is everything. You gotta love it. You gotta want to go after it and just have an obsession for perfection, just for learning everything.
That's right. Nostalgia, obsession for perfection, man. Bringing it back. Yeah.
I used to just I would just look at things and I just would want to know what they were. And I wasn't even a programmer, but then when I got on the machine, I saw all the G code and I just wanted to know what it was. And people 5 years, 10 years, they didn't know what G code was. They could read simple things like M8 and M3 and stuff like that, but they couldn't really you couldn't tell them to go do circles and do different things, Mm-hmm. And it's I would just be hey, I go to the programmer, I say, hey, can you print me out this program that's on my machine? I'm sitting there running parts, so I can just study it. And then I would just look them up. I'd have the paper and I'd be oh, M8 turns on coolant. Hey, G3. You know what I mean? And I just would start marking it up, and anything I didn't know, I would just circle it, and then I would just study it. And it was super quick. And I just started knowing everything that was in our programs. And it's not a lot. There's not a lot of G code and stuff, but having that mind to say, hey, I want to learn this,
right.
And you literally can go through the entire shop, go through all the different machines, and you can have an attitude to say, hey, I want to actually learn about this, and it's not that hard, right?
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
And we run into so many people every day that have such a negative attitude where it's just no, I don't even want to know how to do that. I already know how to hit cycle start. That's good enough.
Yeah.
And it's that's never going to get you anywhere. Having a positive attitude is what gets you into the door at great companies. It's what gets you the opportunities at the job that you're currently at. It's so important, and everything else takes a backseat to that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said. I mean, that's it's the first thing you show up with. It's what people see, right? And it's funny, like you said. And unfortunately, it's not common. And so having that attitude, it's the immediate thing that's going to set you apart from so much of the pack.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it before. When we can't stand it when somebody comes up and says, "I've got 30 years experience. You can't tell me anything," and that's terrible. But that's one thing. But if you've got that attitude when you've in 1 year, 2 years into this, it's so much worse. And I even worked with a guy that was 24 years old, and literally everything we were about to do, he's that's probably not going to work. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, that's not going to work. I'm like, dude, in all your 4 years of experience, you can call it, that's not going to work.
Know that?
You might want to just watch a little bit and let's figure it out first, and then, run it and see.
I love one day we were talking, and we were talking about something similar, and you were saying, I think if you look at any one of my programs that I've ever made in my entire life, they could be improved.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love that attitude, and people, they say that, hey, I got 30 years experience, and it's you want to go back and dissect that 30 years. Who did you work for? Where were they on the levels of this trade? What machines were you on? What type of parts? What type of complexity? What type of tolerances? What type of material? You know what I mean? What were the problems that you had to solve? Everybody is different, and the problems that everyone is faced with is different. And the ones that have the intellect to solve the craziest problems are the ones that are going to rise. And somebody might have a great intellect, but they just didn't have the opportunity to work on great machines.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or maybe they did, and it was maybe it wasn't a great machine, it was a medium machine, but they made it do great things because they understood the variables and different things and stuff. So
And maybe they
I
spent
love that.
30 years making washers
Yeah,
on
exactly.
a 2-axis
Exactly.
lathe.
Yeah, I mean, we had people like that, right? That worked that on the resume that said that they worked at some massive companies that was very impressive, but come to find out, well, they really just stood in front of the machine and made sure the inserts didn't break.
Yeah.
You know, anything, any process, any critical thinking was somebody else. So
Yeah.
at that point, I don't care if you've done it for 50 years; it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would look at, like, when I was coming up, I was just hungry. I was hungry, and I looked at it. I was like, you know, you can make this much money being an operator. You can make this much money being a setup person. You can make this much money programming, and this much if you can do it all. And then you can actually like train other people and solve problems and do all that and stuff. So I just was like, I'm going. You know what
Set
I mean?
your sights on the sky.
And sometimes like I'd go to like shops, like I'd start at a shop, and like I went to like this company Armstrong. Anybody in Northern California, they probably know them. And I walked in there, and they had all these machines, and the machines were like beautiful, like just machines, stack, horizontals, and all that. And they put me on this machine right here, and then I went over there, and it was my first day, and I'm like literally looking, and there's guys at the machines, and they're just standing there looking at me. And I'm like, "What's up, man? How you doing?" You know, like, and I started meeting everybody, and then noticed like they just got runtime. They got one part in the machine, like one vice. They could have like 4 vices, but they got one, you know? And like they got like cycle time, yet it's one person per one machine. And I'm like, you know, talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, do you program?" I'm like, "Yeah, I program." "Do you program?" You know what I mean? And they're like, no, nobody ever taught me. I'm like, "How long you been working there?" 10 years.
Crazy.
You know what I mean? And I'm just like, how can you be there and have all that time and not want to digest that thing and do it? And once you understand the code and once you understand what it's doing, then a CAM, you know, system, it's just a shortcut. Once you understand the fundamentals of everything that's going on, then it's just like, hey, here's an easy way to make that happen so you don't have to hand code it. And it's like, don't be scared of it. Run towards it, you know?
Well, you had said something earlier about being hungry, and I think that's so important. If you want to be a great machinist, I think you got to have passion for the trade. And maybe people disagree, but if you don't love the trade, if you don't love what you're doing, if you don't have a passion for it, if you're not looking like Jessie did and looking at that program and saying, this can be better, how can it be better? How can I change my tool? How can I change my tool path? How can I make a setup sheet so it takes me 2 hours to set up this machine and not 4? If you don't have that hunger, then I don't think you'll ever be a great machinist. So having that passion and just like you said, that hunger to get it done and to get it done better day in and day out is so essential to being a great machinist.
We used to always say obsession for perfection.
Yes, we did.
And we did it a lot of times where did it in inspection, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because we're looking at surface finishes and we're doing greater than, you know, what the call out was, and we're just making it jewelry, making it like just so it's like jewelry. And but an obsession for perfection in life in general, in all things and all variables, is just a great attitude to
100%,
have, you know,
100%.
because what you're talking about, like, oh, this could be better. It's like, absolutely. Oh, any of my programs could be better. Absolutely. So like, where's the wasted motion? You know what I mean? How can we cut this and how can we cut that? And what is the tool? What's it made out of? Like, what surface foot and chip load? What if we went to a carbide? What if we went to a coated carbide? What if we went to, you know, oh, you have 3 tools going into this one hole doing different diameters. What if we actually did a special on the grinder and actually had all 3 diameters and just sent one tool in at one time? Like, there's so many different things that we could do. So having an obsession for perfection is not just quality. It's just like looking at life and how you treat people and how you machine parts and how you run a floor and how you run a business, and man, just perfect.
Well, and it keeps you driving. I mean, obsession for perfection is such a great
That
philosophy.
should be a shirt. How come we don't have a shirt
we
that
should.
says that?
That should
just
100%
like
be a shirt.
black
Yeah.
and simple, You know what I mean? And you can just like have like the eagle,
Dave.
and in the back just have obsession for perfection.
I love that. I think
I don't
that
know.
would be
I'm
a
going to have
great.
to work on my body a little bit before I can wear a shirt like that.
Let's go.
We got the gym over there, brother. Let's get at it, man.
Somebody look at me in that shirt and be like,
Yeah.
"Really, bro? Are you obsessed with
You know what I
perfection?"
mean?
though? I mean,
But it's such a great philosophy because you can't ever really be perfect, and I think we know that, right? But you can chase it. You can chase
Yep.
it to the day you
Yeah.
die,
That's
and you
it.
can incrementally get closer
That's
without
it.
ever obtaining it. Keep you going all the time.
And that has a lot to do too with experience. You know, the more things that you see being done, the more things that you can incorporate into your day-to-day processes and your
Mhm.
programs. So, you know, there's so many different avenues. We have YouTube now, which we didn't have back when some of us were learning. But now we can just, you know, search for a specific thing, find it right away, learn what other people
It's
are doing.
Titans of CNC.
Oh, yeah, I've
It's-
heard of those
It's
guys.
funny you say that because I still have in my toolbox. I have that old like 3-ring binder with all these inserts on like Inconel 625 and how to cut it. Gave me starting surface or SFMs and whatnot. So I still have a lot of those documents.
I mean, that's the whole reason why I spent so much time at Precision Machine, the first shop I worked at and I wasn't there very long, and I'd gotten a job offer from a massive company. And so I had a decision to make because, like, they're obviously offering me a lot more money. It's a lot cushier job, better benefits, and all this stuff. But I realized that what type of job it was, which was all assembly line type stuff, is like, you know what? In 30 years, I'm going to be doing the same exact job, and I'm going to know the same exact thing that I did on day one. Or I could stay here and, yeah, I'm going to make less money right now, but I'm going to learn. I've got the opportunity to learn lathes, mills, water jet, lasers, mill turns. Everything was under that one roof. And we were a job shop, so we did everything, every type of material come in the door. There was just a lot more learning opportunity there. And I was like, I know that one day it's going to pay off, but I would much rather be here learning all this stuff. And it's kind of like they didn't pigeonhole you into one machine. Like, oh, no, you're a lathe guy. Oh, you're a mill guy. It was like, oh, you want to learn the mills or you want to do that? There's the material. There's the print. Go do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that gives
That
me
is
so
great.
much more knowledge and understanding of this trade by doing that.
Yeah, it's that complexity of work, right? You really kind of need that. It's hard, and like I know there will probably be somebody out there that would disagree, but without having some sort of job shop experience, I think you're just you're missing something vital to being a great machinist.
I think that a lot of, there's a lot of people watching and they haven't worked in a machine shop, or they've worked in a production facility and they don't really understand the differences. But yeah, you have companies that have their own products that have, maybe that product would have like, that assembly of what they're making might have 100 different parts, and then those 100 different parts get scheduled throughout the shop, and they make the same 100 parts over and over and over because that's their product, and that's a production facility.
Yep.
But when you look at a job shop, it's like a gun for hire, right? It's like a shop for hire. It's all these engineers and companies that make a product that say, hey, we need these exact parts per this print or solid model, and we're going to actually give it to you. You quote on it. If you win the bid, we're going to actually give you a PO for it, and then you have 8 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever,
1 day.
2 days,
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean,
Exactly.
to actually make this part and stuff. And when you work at a job shop that makes such a variety of different parts and materials to different tolerances, and all the setups are completely different, and that's as you guys are saying, just to explain a little bit to people out there, it's like because you're doing so many different things, you just learn way more than working at a specific shop that runs the same parts over and over forever.
For sure.
And when you work at a job shop, I mean, for me, I walked into Zenola Manufacturing in Sunnyvale, and a lot of people know the story, but it was like, 7-8 guys, and they had same thing about 7-8 machines. And because I was one of a small number of people, and I had a good attitude, and I was likable, and I was like begging for it, I got on the machine super quick and just ran with it. And then I got to run so many different parts, and that, like, what happened in my first year, like I was the foreman of that shop within a year, but it could have never happened if I hadn't from day one gotten all these opportunities to put in that extra work and go work and solve the problems and learn the trade and do all these different things, so super important. Job shop like experience, as Jesse said, you can't beat it.
I don't think
Yeah.
you.
Well, the
I just-
fundamentals become so much more important there. If you walked into a production shop and it's like, well, you ain't got to worry about any of the other stuff because we do this here in this one little section. So
We've
learn
been doing
this.
it forever.
Yep.
Yeah, but in a job shop, that's where you've got to learn the fundamentals because you've got to translate that over a wide variety of things.
For sure. I mean, the same SFM on the same material can have to be entirely different based on the stick out of the part or hold there is. You really do. I mean, it's such a great point. You have to be able to really know how to apply those fundamentals in so many different scenarios.
And understand all the variables that are involved.
Yeah.
We talked before about how important understanding GD&T is to a programmer because it'll totally redefine the way that you're going to process a part based on the datum structure and things. So, in addition to the fundamentals, in addition to experience, you have to understand everything about the part you're making and be able to look at a drawing and say, I know exactly how I'm going to process this part because this is how this part has to be processed.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I may have mentioned this before because I think I was talking to Titan about this, but like what I used to do with your videos back in the day is I do this everywhere I go. Is if somebody was making a part or if I see a part on the internet or whatever, before I watch the video, I'll like pause it and I'll just like think, okay, if this is the part that I had to do, how would I do it?
Yeah.
Get the process in my mind, and then I watch the video or I see how somebody else in the shop is
And
doing it.
if you thought right, it was exactly how you did it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying.
No, that's like if they did it differently, I'd be like, okay, well, why did they do it differently? And it puts you in a different mindset, and because you get that tunnel vision, but it opens your mind up to see things in a different way.
Yeah.
And you might not, I completely didn't think of that, or
And
something.
how many
like that.
times has that happened to us where
So
you
many
go down
times.
this rabbit hole and it's like, this is how I'm going to do it. And then somebody else is like, how come you didn't just do this? And it's like, holy cow.
Well, that's why it's so important to be willing to learn and be humble because there are so many ways, as I say, many ways to skin a cat, right? There's so many ways to approach a part sometimes, and tackle that. So being open to other
complex
people's
parts.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Especially.
Yeah.
I think that like not even to plug the academy, but when people actually
You
go
can
in
plug the
there
academy.
and dude, if you really look at it, like we have a fundamental series that basically, put the program in the machine, stone the table, put the vise on, indicate the vise, how to like put pressure, on the bolts and stuff to like get it all locked in, tap it in and then indicate it, perfectly place it. You know what I mean? Putting in parallels, putting in all of it. Like the entire stack up of like setup is explained in simple little videos. And then you can go through the setup sheet. But even watching the videos, that's why from the very beginning, we start with CAD and we start going through an actual print and saying, looking at GD&T and tolerancing and saying, hey, later on our 0 is going to be in the upper left per our setup sheet. So we're going to just draw this and we're just going to stick with that upper left. We're going to move to the right, move down, boom, lock it in. And then you just start making all your different, everything to make the part. And through the entire process, you keep referring back to the print. You keep referring back to, the tolerance and how big it is and stuff like that, 4 inches, 2 inches, this and this. And you just know the part so intimate that the more you do that, the better you get. So anybody who wants to learn how to be a programmer or just a machinist or learn GD&T, going through like all the building blocks, it's putting that time going through all the building blocks, then going to the fixture series, going through the rocket, going into aerospace, just the talks that we had on the aerospace parts, and the true positioning and all that, just bringing all that in. I mean, you can learn so much from it.
Yep.
So
Be a
much from it.
sponge.
Even if it's not exact your situation, like,
Yeah.
that's not the machine that I run, so I'm not going to watch it. But it's
Yeah.
like you just said, stoning the table, this and that, like
Process is process.
Yeah, like torquing the vise. Like there's little nuggets all throughout there that you're going to be learning and that will apply to everything that you do. That
And
really
there's
good.
a lot of our videos, and you know, I always tell the editors and stuff, make sure you leave in the gold, you know, and I want to make sure, like, if we put a video out, you know, whether it's just like aggressive machining or full part tutorials, I want somebody to get something from it.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
I was looking at the ball in a box video, super good, and then but what do you do to make a ball in a box? What did you do? You made a perfect cube 1st.
Yep.
You went through the fundamentals of making a perfect cube.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fun project that taught a very, very important
And
part.
now
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
now there's a ton of people that have made ball in the boxes. and-
They're all over.
Yeah.
And I think every person that I saw do that project posted like, wow, this was a lot harder
Yeah.
than I thought. And most of them had to do it twice because it's like, wow, the first one came up so tore up because I didn't really understand the importance of tolerance stack up and things like that. But even a project like that, you can learn so much from, even late in your career. I mean, how many machinists have you met that can't properly square a block?
Yeah.
for
I've
sure.
met a ton of them.
Well, that's what that teaches you, right? To make a ball in a box and not a egg in a trapezoid.
Which is what Jessie always said I made.
That's cool. You know, we talked about the importance of working at some point in your career at a job shop. And it's super important because you're doing such a variety of different things. I think another thing with being in a job shop is that you're around a variety of people
Oh, yeah.
with different experiences, you know?
And attitudes
Yeah.
and personalities.
Attitude.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some for
Yeah.
better, some for worse.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why, you know, I always said we did a video, and I was talking about being an owner of a company and being successful and actually getting customers. And I said one of the things nobody ever thinks about. They think about skill and money. And I'm like, you know what? One of the most important things that you have to have attributes is be likable. You know what I mean? Because you have to go out there and hustle work, and people have to say, hey, I actually want to, you know, take a chance on this person and give them work and spend time giving them quotes and deal with them on a daily basis. And like, there's a relationship in this. And it's like, you know, you need to have a great attitude. You got to be likable. And in the same place, if you work at a job shop and you're around a bunch of like just stellar individuals that know an amazing amount, it's important for you to have the right attitude, be likable, and ask for it. People love, like, if you see a young guy come up and he's just like, hey, can you teach me something? I know, like, you guys have spent so much time, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you want to help that person. If they're hungry and they have passion and they're going to put the time in and they're asking you for help, you're going to totally want to help them.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people that I've run into in my career where they act like, you know, if you come and ask them a question, that they shouldn't answer it because you should have to go through the learning process the same way they did.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, if somebody comes to me, I will never turn them away if they have a question. I will do my absolute best to make sure they understand my answer. And a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past have become, you know, stellar machinists just because they did have that right attitude. They asked the right questions, they had an open mind, and, you know, they just worked well with everybody. They were likable. I mean, if you're not likable, then you're not going to get any opportunities because your boss is going to be sitting there saying, oh, this guy's a pain, I don't want to have to deal with him. You know? So
And that's going to lead to more opportunities as well, because if you're hungry, if you've shown the initiative that you want to learn and you want more, then your boss is going to be like, anytime something comes up, he's going to like, give it to him.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
wanting it.
one thing Titan said that I really liked is run towards problems. Like, don't run away from them. Don't be the guy who says, no, that's too hard, I don't want anything to do with that. Run to the problems.
Or it's beneath you, right? Be willing to do whatever asked of you. You
Oh,
had
yeah.
said something, Barry, about being a yes man, and sometimes that can be taken as a negative, but in the right context, right? Be willing to do any job that needs to be done,
Yeah.
you know, and so.
Well, I know a couple companies that's shops that's how they've built their shop is
Yeah.
they do the things that nobody else
for
wants
sure,
to do.
100%.
I know a few of those too. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that there's a lot of young people that, and you probably like, people like tell young people, oh, you can be whatever you want, you know what I mean, and you can do this and do that and stuff. But at the same time, if you're not solving a legitimate problem, then why do people care? You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna be an industry, and I'm a customer, if you can't solve my problems, what is my problems? I need an amazing part on time,
Cheap.
and I need it. I need it at a cost that I can afford. You know, that is beating everybody else, and then then we have a relationship, and then we're gonna do it. But if you can't meet the criteria, then it's not gonna happen, you know.
Yep.
So it's like people that solve problems do good in life, period. And as you guys can see, I don't want to talk about it, but I take very good care of my guys. But every one of my guys, they solve my problems. They solve big problems. You guys are amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I try to solve more problems than I cause.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's,
It's a good policy.
Yeah. but the drama's good on video, so we'll show the problem that you
Have a
caused.
problem
You know
or
what I
two.
mean?
Have
But
a problem or two.
you just going and solving everybody's problems, like, it's kind of boring. So we don't talk about it. But
all right, could we just show my problems I caused one time and then move on?
Barry keeps
they
everybody
live
honest
in
with terms.
reruns. You know, so good.
Oh, the internet is forever.
I know. We were talking obsession for perfection. Obsession for perfection. When I look at a part and I'm running it, and I'm like, okay, I've made 1 million parts. Like, it's the most boring thing to me. What I love is you're like, and then all of a sudden you make some changes, like, you know what I mean? And just and then, see, you got excited, you know, and you're like, oh, you know, but then you're looking at the time, and you're looking at the time decrease, and stuff, and it's like, oh, you know, surface finish this, and what if I rough, and then I just come back and kiss it, and this and that, and all different types of materials. And I love that game right there. I love the process of taking something that everyone thinks is impossible, that it's going to run at this time, and you take it somewhere that nobody thinks it can go.
Yep. That is one thing that I did like about working in some production shops, is that since you knew you were going to be making that same part over and over, you could put the time in to make certain that there wasn't a spare second you could take out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't always do that in the job shop when you're making one part.
Sometimes you just got to get it done, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that.
But as you learn, and as you start taking these materials and you take these cuts and you start truly tracking them and writing them down and understanding the standards and making them your standards, then when you are in a job shop and you take on a part, you immediately look at the work holding, look at the variables, look at the coolant, look at the tooling, and actually make the aggressive cuts from the beginning.
Yep.
And you automatically are just way more efficient, you know. And what does that do in a company? It makes the company money.
Oh yeah.
And so many people, they just don't put the time in to do it. They just don't put the time, and then there's no consistency, you know. So I think, you know, to be a great machinist, I think that you have to look at yourself and say, you know what, you know, I don't think you can look at yourself as a great machinist and be like, you know what, I don't make the company money. Like, making the company money is incredibly important, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely.
If you're a race car driver, you better win some races.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you'll never call yourself great. If there's always 6 people in front of you, you know what I mean, then you're mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think a great machinist is ever complacent, right? I mean, I think they're always looking here or looking there or finding some way that they can do something a little bit better. I mean, I think it just comes with being a great machinist.
Yeah,
I remember at some point I had a laugh at myself at General Atomics because I was programming something and I always do things differently, you know, and it's to that same point. It's like every time I would do something on my next part, I'm like, oh, that kind of worked, or like this, I want to try this. And I would always try something new. So every time I handed a part to somebody, I'd be like, well, is this good? Is this, you know, whatever. And I'm like, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be good or not. And at some point I just laughed at myself. I was like, when am I finally going to say, I know what I'm doing? And I know, and when I send something out, I'll be like, yes, it's going to work. Because I never know, because I'm always trying to do something different to make it more efficient, to make it better. And
then it comes to the vision of this whole company is to serve our industry, and it's just it's such a blessing on me that I get to surround myself with such amazing talent, and each one of you guys are out there teaching and for people to grow in this industry. It's funny to say, because there's a lot of bad things about social media, but because it connects machinists and machine shops and owners and customers all around the world and puts them in like community. It's the greatest thing. And again, a shout out to Titans of CNC, but we do complex things. You know what I mean? And the more that you watch these videos, the more that you digest them and you really think about it. Like somebody can look at this octopus. Maybe we can get a camera and like come in like a little bit close over here. But somebody that looks at this octopus, they can look at it and they can be like, oh, it was an awesome octopus. He machined this octopus out of titanium. But as you come down and then you start looking at the chuck that was used, then you look at the Vero S system that was used, that the chuck actually goes into, and then you look at how the clearance that you have over here where the head comes down and the room that you have and how the chuck allowed that. Automatically you're learning about the shunt chuck, you're learning about the Vero S, you're learning about the ways that we actually went about machining something where you have like you got something like this just hanging out in free air. But we didn't just machine it in the free air. There were steps that you take to actually take it there, and stuff. Mm-hmm. But every single major project that we have, the grill, I mean, how, you do this grill for SEMA and it's a monster. And this thing's getting like 3-piece together. You know what I mean? Yeah. Thanks to Jessie. But no, I'm just kidding. But you look at the pieces and it's like everyone's attitude is like, I'm just going to put a whole bunch of vices down. And yet the way that you fixtured and like put those holes in and did it on the second side and made it so perfect and made it so easy, it worked. Worked. Mm-hmm. And as a machinists have great minds, so it's like they just need to see something. They just need to see it. When I came up, I was just like, people would always like be, oh, it's Inconel, it's impossible.
Me too.
And I wanted it. Like I wanted it, except a small little piece was like super expensive, and I couldn't get it. But as soon as I had my own shop, I was dying to get into that kind of stuff, But it's like at that time there just wasn't a lot of information, and nobody really had the experience, that I was around and stuff. And I would just go on the internet and try to figure it out, and we did and stuff. But today you can look at our videos, and if you're cutting Inconel, look at the tool, look at the surface foot, look at the depth of cut, the chip load, and just analyze how are they holding it, what are they like, how long is, there's a lot of videos that we have that we talk about timing, cut, and how many drilled holes we drilled in whatever material. Bank all that information, and like that's a huge amount of knowledge. We have 1,600 videos on YouTube alone.
Well, and then look at all the members we have on the Facebook group. You can go to Discord. I mean, if you're willing to learn, there's so much availability. I mean, of what we put together for you to go out there and find the answer to take your game to another level, I guess, really.
And back in the day when we were trying to figure all this out, when there wasn't this huge availability of information, I remember a lot of it was trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I remember one funny thing I did before was, I figured it works with, dynamic milling works with end mills, so it should work with thread mills too. I mean, it's just a carbide cutting tool. So I decided to take my step over on my thread mill to like 5 thou and try to whip around at 100 inches a minute, and the thread mill disagreed with my methodology.
Those are lessons you remember, though.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, super good, man.
Boom. That's part about the videos and stuff like that is like. And being a great machinist, like you said earlier, it's about knowing the variables and learning all of the variables because there's so many. Well, the same goes with watching a video. And like to Titan's point, there's a lot more happening than just at the tip of the tool. Mm-hmm. That's happening here, but what's allowing that to happen or happen well? And that's the fixture, that's the clearances, that's the machine, the torque, the horsepower. Like literally, there's 1,000 things that's to be seen and understand than just what's happening right at the tool.
Oh, for sure. I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, that being a machinist, I think, is the toughest trade you could possibly be in because of the variables, because of the massive amount of things that are going on in a given part.
And it's funny because in the beginning of your career, you might look at all those variables and say, I'm not smart enough for this. This is too much for me to learn. But every single little video you watch, every single little fixture you look at somebody else working on, every part you see, you learn all these things over time, and then you end up with this huge mass of knowledge and experience.
You know, I'm seeing more and more. I've seen it for years, but these guys in the comments, and they're like, I'm not even from your industry. I work at a bank, or I work at doing this. And it's like, I just been watching your videos and I love machining, and now I'm buying a sile, you know. It's like just super cool, man. You know, because like you can say like, oh, you know, it's over my head, I don't understand it. But if you just absorb it, it becomes you. And the more you see process, the more you see parts being made, the more that you see it, like all of a sudden you just get it. You look at the building blocks, and it is so brilliant, you know. Not just because it's ours and it was our idea to say, hey, this is how we're gonna do it, but because like from the very first part, it's process. They think they're making this little part, but it's a face mill, it's an end mill, you know what I mean? It's a chamfer, it's a drill, and a tap, and you're going from big to you know, the next to the next to the next. Take face off the top, cut around the outside, cut away all the stuff, come in and finish it, deburr everything, make it all nice, put the chamfers in for the drill, and then like tap it. And then it's like from the next one, guess what? First tool, face mill. Second tool, end mill, chamfer. But now we go to like a 228 drill for a 1/4-20, a roll tap. And then so it changes in taps, and then it goes to a round part, then it goes to, and that is the brilliance in it, is that it's the same size material. You go from one part to the next part super quick, and the people learning, they all of a sudden, they just learn the process. And by part 4, they're not even listening to you because they know how to do an adaptive or OptiRough, and they're just like boom, 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 and they're just looking for what's new. Oh, they added a key cutter, they added this, they added that. So even if you're an operator, just learning how to program and learning how to actually, you know, make a part and going through the series, it'll just teach you so much and make you understand. Your whole job will be better. You know?
And I like to, that the Academy doesn't allow you to just be a mindless robot. Like, you have to apply what you learned on the first part to be able to do the second one. Absolutely. It's not just following along word for word with somebody and you're done. You didn't learn anything. It forces you to go back if you didn't get it.
When we're doing the first, like, point taken is like you're explaining stuff, and that's like different too, is because you're like, hey, we're doing the Titan 1. It's like, okay, we just designed this, and then we came off the upper left, and that's me. I've always been like, every single guy who sets up for me, they're used to me. They just know I go upper left. And unless I have 3 stars next to it and it says upper right, you know what I mean? But I'm always going back. And that's just from so many years of using, like, you know, where the dead jaw's in the back, you know, before getting into the double vices and stuff. But it's like that kind of mentality kind of transferred into the building blocks. And then from the very first one, whether you're looking at the ones that I taught or Nicole, who learned from me, you know, how she taught it, or it's like everything's like, okay, now we're gonna put it in. We're gonna go upper left, and that's because we're in a standard vise where the dead jaw's in the back. Boom, boom. We're gonna go, you know, 0 in here. Boom. I mean, move in off of 0. Blah blah blah, and then you just explain the why behind everything. So as you mentioned, you get to the second part, I'm not explaining that it's because of a vice and a dead. I'm explaining something else. You know what I mean? And through each video, you just get something else and something else, and then you just know the whys behind everything, not just how to program a part, but why would you program it a certain way? People say, oh, you got all these, like, you know, keyboard warrior, you know, guys that work for these CAM companies that have never actually, you know, machined a part in their life for like for money, you know, and they're just like, you always go off the bottom, and I had these arguments, and I'm like, I actually do. I know Jessie goes off the bottom, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of times I do, but I choose to teach 0 off the top of part, and it's just simple in the building blocks, not so much on the 5 axes, but on the building blocks. I'm dealing with beginners, and because I've done this for so long, I understand the code. I just know hey, Z is super important. And instead of having them add, I'm just going to be like Z0, everything below the surface of the material is negative space, and you can crash and break tools. Anything positive is up in the air. It's like you just don't care. You know what I mean?
Consistency
From
too.
Delaware, you know. but you know what I mean? And then it's like it just makes sense, because once they bring up the program, they're like, oh, Z negative, I'm inside the material. Z positive, I'm above the material. And it just is super simple. But once you get through building blocks, then it's like, all right, now you have a good understanding for machining and making parts and setting Z on zeros and understanding how 1 decimal can just screw you up. But now we're going to 5-axis. Now we're going to set it off the center, the bottom, because that's a known position right there that is like, you know, measurable. And but not on all parts, right?
Right.
But fundamentals, man, super
Yeah.
important.
Well, that's setting up a foundation of arguably one of the most important things in machining, and that is learning how to process a part. Like, you can't be a good machinist if you don't know how to get to the end result from the beginning, you know.
Yep.
So, and I used to be scared to death to learn a new machine or whatever. It's like all these buttons, it's something different. It's you know, completely different. And I'd always be scared at learning something new. But at some point in my career, I realized it doesn't matter what machine you run. Like, I've interviewed people and they would be scared to death. Well, I've never learned it. I don't know that machine. I know these machines. I'm like, bro, it doesn't matter. Like, here's a part. Tell me how you would get there. That's, if you know that, then we can learn the buttons. Same with CAM software. I know what I want to do. Now show me where that is in this software. But you got to learn how to process a part.
It's that conceptual understanding, right? You know, I think, you know, it's so important in being
And
a machinist.
it's funny how fast you get at that too after a couple decades. You know, it's like, hand me a print now and I at least have 3 ideas of how to process it before I even dive into the GD&T or anything. And it's always funny because I'll be over here coming up with one way of doing things, and then Titan will walk up and be like, oh, we could do it like this. That's easier. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. That is. And then Jessie will walk up and do the same thing to me. So it's always, you know.
Hey, so you're saying he agrees with me?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It's because he told me his idea and I just went.
That's right.
Stole it as my own.
That was good. Not to reveal secrets, but you guys. So you actually worked on the project for a long time for setting it up, and then now you're going to do it. So Panic at the Disco, the actual crazy group that has how many millions of followers online or something?
A lot of
Yeah,
millions.
just
A lot of
crazy, like big time. And the drummer actually designed his own drum, and drums have always been made exactly the same, and yet you have this one drum that is just like, it's amazing.
Yep.
And we're going to actually machine that on the big DVF 8000T.
Nice.
And your baby that you actually helped them like get everything ready, you're handing off to Jessie.
Yep.
It's cool.
We just finished the design today right after lunch,
Yeah.
so I Zoomed with Dan is his name, and we got the design finalized. So
So
coming your
good,
way,
so
Ozzy.
good. I told my daughter knows the group, and I played it, and I was like, oh, that guy's gonna come to the shop and then set up his drums and like jam it,
Get
you know.
after it,
And she's so excited. She drums right in school, 6th grade. But super excited. But that was cool. We actually, you know, you had such a good idea with, you know, taking this big piece of material, you know, and then popping it into a Vero S with the and super good, man.
Yeah, it should
And then we're
work
gonna
out well.
flip it around, and we came up with a nice little solution for the second side.
Yep.
And it's like teamwork makes the dream work, man.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. You guys might learn something.
Super good, super good. Awesome, man. All right, I think we're good.
I think so.
That is
yeah.
how you become a great machinist. Just like have a great attitude, love the trade, love people, like dissect the machine, dissect the programs, like just look at all the variables, learn them, put the time in. You know, if you're married, like wait till your wife goes to sleep or something and just put time in, you know, watch videos. You can be watching videos that do nothing for your well-being or your life, but you can watch machining videos that'll actually, you don't know that you're learning something, but all of a sudden you're taking that in, and that's knowledge, and knowledge is power, and you can be great.
Yep.
but you got to put the work in.
Yep.
That's right. Yep. And just know that if you're in the shower and you're not thinking about how you could have done that part better, you're probably not a great machinist yet. I'm just saying.
And with that, everybody that says don't take your work home, like I love when my wife asks me about what I did. I love talking to her about projects that we're doing, and it's something that we both have. You know, I just love it, man. And
Yeah.
why not, right? I mean, that's what we do.
Oh yeah, a lot of the times when you're sitting at work stressed out, the solution's not going to come to you.
Mhm.
You go home and your place of peace.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've solved so many problems the second I open my eyes in the morning.
Dude,
Mhm.
that's
I'm
the
telling you.
craziest
Yep.
thing, because I'm the same way. I will not know how to actually make something happen or what I should do, and I literally will wake up and I know.
Yep.
And
Same
it's
here.
different than I never even thought about it this day before, but I'm
Yep.
like, that's it.
Yep.
Boom. Move to Texas, May 12th. Change everybody's lives. Let's go.
Boom.
All right. We're out.
All right.
Thank you
Peace.
guys.
Mhm.
Boom.
Yep.